Michael, is this going to become commonplace here in America?
Oh, clearly, war is what I do. When I returned to the United States in 2020, because I could see the United States was going into war, it was very clear to me because war is my business, right? And so I had been overseas for most of the last 20 years, and I saw what was unfolding. So I flew back and I went straight to Portland and watched those Antifa monkeys out in the street doing their thing, and have been at it ever since, all over the United States and many countries since. Now I'm down in Guatemala. This is clearly one of the main paths of people coming up to the United States. And the Rubin brothers on muckraker.com and Taylor Kramer and many others, and Vandersteel, so many others are out on the front lines constantly warning about this thing. At this point, there's no way around the fact that we have to do mass deportations. There's no way around that. And it's going to be incredibly dangerous. There's going to be a lot of people. If you don't do that, the United States is just done. It's finished. And the same with Europe. You can see the fighting breaking out now in Spain, France, UK, so many places, Italy. It's on and on and on. Meanwhile, you see Israel has opened up a multi-front war. Israel will be very lucky to survive this as a country. As an area, it'll always be there. But as a country, you'll be like Ukraine, as many of us warned about Ukraine. You're getting into something that you're not going to walk out of very happy, and that's what's happening now with Israel as well. And the bottom line is this: that we have no borders, and this is not a border crisis because we have no border, and this is not a crisis. This is an invasion. This is an actual war, right? We're way beyond crisis. Crisis was 20 years ago, right? We're way beyond that now. The house is on fire.
The old former KGB propaganda officer that I have had in my documentaries for years, Yuri Bezmenov, laid out to my friend G. Edward Griffin back in 1983, 84, demoralize, destabilize, chaos, and the new norm, where the socialist state comes in and brings so-called stability in the new norm. Demoralize, destabilize, chaos. We're in the chaos stage now. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, definitely. This is going into a very serious civil war in the United States and across Europe. And again, war is my business. I've spent years in wars and even more years studying wars. And it's clear that millions of people are probably going to die across Europe and the United States.
Which
I
kind of
don't see any
fits
way out of
with
it.
you don't see any way out of it. That kind of fits with the Deagle map. Are you aware of the Deagle map and predictions about depopulation?
Yes.
And
And at this, go ahead, sir.
that appears to be DOD, CIA, Rockefeller Foundation, according to news reports last week. Expo is saying those appear to be three of the groups behind that. That was a map put out, and a prediction put out several years ago. And they're predicting a 68.5% decline in American population. Europe, 77%, if I remember correctly. Civil war and world war and then, of course, the COVID spike proteins and all that. Add all those things together, you could see where that could be achieved very quickly, particularly if your power grid goes down for any length of time.
Absolutely. Just cut off the lights and you'll go straight into famine. Not to mention just the violence everywhere. And so, a lot of people, their prep plan is to go rob their neighbor. Obviously, that's not sustainable. And this is the sort of thing that, bottom line is we have enemies, wolves watching at us. It's not like we live in a vacuum, or Israel, right? And when as we weaken, the Chinese Communist Party is flooding through the United States. You see all those marijuana farms up in Maine, the reports that have come out there, or in Oregon, Oklahoma, all these Chinese. There's huge numbers of Chinese coming in, and they're starting farms, right? But they're selling marijuana right now. They're going to transition probably straight to food for their population and come and take farms from American farmers, right? The Chinese Communist Party is openly coming to repopulate all of the Americas. This isn't hidden. This isn't conspiracy theory. They say it. They write it. They are acting it out. Right now, they're taking Panama. The Panama Canal is one of the most vital terrains on planet Earth for anybody on Earth, but especially for the United States. In addition to the water problems in Panama, the Chinese are taking it over. You see all the roads that are closed right now, and you'll see in the news it's all about this the mining issue with the Canadian company with the Canadian contract. It's not a Canadian company. It's the main investors in that company are Chinese. And no matter which way this Supreme Court decision goes down in Panama, it doesn't matter. Panama is going to lose. You know how China sets up these traps. They set up these financial and contractual traps that so many countries walk into around the world. For instance, now if Panama breaks the contract on this mine, if for those who know what I'm talking about, Panama is on the hook for $50 billion. I didn't say million, I said billion, right? That's a lot for a little country like that. And one way or the other, China is coming to take Panama. And China is down, for instance, in Honduras now. They got, archaeological dig going on, trying to persuade the Mayan people that they are actually related and that they're actually related to Chinese. And the reason that the Chinese are doing this all over the place is because first you come with these archaeological digs. It's called archaeological warfare, right? Or archaeology warfare. You dig up, you found this piece of pottery or whatever, and you say, hey, this is ours, right? And then the next thing you know, you persuade the local people, hey, we're actually related. Then you come out with the books and the documentaries and the museums, and then you take journalists to the museums, just like they do on Jeju Island in Korea and Nanjing. I've been to all these museums. I've been to museums all over the world studying this stuff. Malaysia, Indonesia, Japan, China, oh, good Lord, Thailand. I've been to so many museums looking at this stuff. And now they're doing the same thing here in Central America. The Chinese Communist Party is trying to persuade all the indigenous people across the Americas that they are related to Chinese and that the Spanish and the French and the Germans and everybody else came and took their land and that they need to come take their land back. They're doing the same with Hawaii. We've been warning about Hawaii for years, and the Hawaiians are just walking right into it, right? They're just, because everybody does. Almost everybody walks right. They're doing it in Colombia. It's the same story everywhere I go. I was with Chuck Holton. Chuck, we were in Morocco together a year or two ago. Or actually, it was before the war with the Russia and Ukraine, and actually United States and the rest. And we were down in Morocco looking at this, at the weaponized migration. We're driving down the road, and there's a new language on the signs. And keep in mind, between Chuck Holton and me, we've been to almost every country on earth, right? Chuck's been to, I don't know, maybe 120 or something. This is my 95th country here in Guatemala. And when I count countries, I'm not talking airport stops. I've seen a lot of languages. I've seen a lot of countries. And I saw this alphabet on the street signs there in Morocco, an alphabet that I never recognized. And I said, Chuck, what's that alphabet? Strange. Neither one of us recognized it. And I said, you know what? As a student of information war, I think this is an information campaign. And that's exactly what it is. They're trying to get indigenous people in Morocco to come up. They came up with a new alphabet that instead of using a modified version of Arabic, they came up with an entirely new alphabet, which you can find online. Just look up New Alphabet Morocco or New Lake, and you'll see that they're doing the same thing in Morocco, trying to split the Moroccans apart. They're doing this everywhere. I see it in Thailand. I see it in Nepal. I was in Nepal for a year. I was out there with the Maoist during the Maoist war for a year. I was watching them get all the different villages to dance their old dances. They get Malaysia and Indonesia to fight each other based on musical appropriation. They were doing that like 15 years ago or so. You got Malaysia and Indonesia suing each other about music. It goes on and on and on.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, I want you to respond to this real quick. I'm going to talk with Leo Holm about this later in the program. Shipping containers now inspected. Military-aged Chinese men crossing border and Chinese police stations in the U.S. Nothing to see here. Law enforcement today. The American people might be shocked to find out only 3.7% of the roughly 11 million containers entering the U.S. each year are scanned. In other words, over 10.5 million containers are not inspected each year, according to Custom and Border Protection. And in Europe, European Union, it's only 1.5%. And we're also getting reports around the country by law enforcement today that individuals are being arrested, committing destruction in secure areas, food processing plants, chemical plants, etc. They're being arrested. Then they're being ordered to be released. The police officers, the sheriff deputies are ordered to let them go and keep their mouths shut. Law enforcement today just put out that bulletin last week. I want you to comment on this when we come back, and then we'll be joined by Aaron. Don't go away. Thanks for watching. It's now time to prepare. Our war with China will be fought on American soil. The Chinese military will take down our grid, turn off our water, and spread disease. The CCP saboteurs will detonate bombs to terrorize. We have left ourselves vulnerable in our own homeland.
Well, first of all, on time frame, we don't know what's in Xi Jinping's mind, the Chinese ruler, but we do know that he is preparing for war. He is engaged in the largest and fastest military buildup since the Second World War. He's sanctions proofing his regime. He is mobilizing China's civilians for war. You know, he flew the spy balloons over the United States and other places. He talks about war all the time. And in October, he appointed what's called his war cabinet. So we need to be prepared for any moment. And if there is war, Brandon, we are going to be in the thick of it. You know, it's not going to be like Korea or the Iraq or Gulf wars where they were fought over there. China's regime is going to make sure that we feel it here. And as I mentioned, they are going to do those things that are mentioned in the tweet, which means Americans are going to have to prepare and they are going to have to make sure they can take care of their families for months without water, without electricity, without all the rest of it. We are going to live in a pretty primitive society, and that's what the shape of war is going to look like. Brandon, we know that in the October through January period, the number of Chinese refugees coming in our border from the south has increased by 800% year on year. And Michael Yon, who's a war correspondent, reports that he is seeing Chinese refugees, and almost all of them are real refugees. They're just escaping communism. But some of them, he said, look like they're military age, and they look a little bit too fit to be people who are escaping a communist regime. And therefore, we've got to assume that some of them are Ministry of State Security agents. They are here for sabotage. And I think some of them are actually going to create terror, as I mentioned, by detonating bombs in places like shopping centers and supermarkets. So people need to be concerned about this. They need to make sure that they can take care of their families and themselves. And we should not assume that we have these modern conveniences. You know, Dr. Peter Pryor was right. An electromagnetic pulse device takes out our grid, and that means for months, perhaps, we are not going to have electricity.